Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4. Vidura approaches Maitreya, text 34. Jeha nyasam chatasyaivam
Dehanyasam Satasyavam
Kiranam Dhairyavardhanam
Dhiranam
Anyesham Dushkarataram
Anyesham Dushkarataram
Pushunam Viklavatmanam
Pushunam Viklavatmanam
Dehanyasam tatasyavam
Dehanyasam Satasyavam
Dhiranam Dhairyavartanam
Dhiranam Dhairyavartanam
Anyesam Dushkarataram
Anyesam Dushkarataram
Pashunam Viklavatamamam
Pushunam Viklavatmanam
Jehanyasam,
Dehanyasam
entering the body.
Entering the body.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Tasya,
Tasya,
his.
his.
Evam,
Evam,
also.
also.
Dhiranam,
Dhiranam,
of great sages.
of great sages.
Dhairya,
Dhairya,
perseverance.
perseverance.
Vardhanam,
Vardhanam,
increasing.
increasing.
Anyesham,
Anyesham,
for others.
for others.
Dushkarataram,
Dushkarataram,
very difficult to ascertain.
very difficult to ascertain.
Pashunam,
Pashunam,
in the verse it's Pushunam.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the beasts.
of the beasts.
Viklava,
Viklava,
disturbed.
disturbed.
Atmanam,
Atmanam,
of such a mind.
of such a mind.
I meant to say that this Pushunam is in the verse, but in the word for word, it's Pashunam. So I'm not quite sure what it is. This is the way it is in the verse. It's okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Lord's glorious acts and His acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than His devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. Purport: the transcendental forms and pastimes of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, are difficult subject matters for those who are not devotees to understand. The Lord never reveals Himself to persons like the Gyanis and Yogis, and there are others who, because of their envying the Lord from the bottom of their hearts, are classified amongst the beasts. And for such envious beasts, the subject matter of the Lord's appearance and disappearance is simply a mental disturbance, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:15. The miscreants who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of Godhead at any stage due to asurika bhava, or a spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. The transcendental bodily expansions manifested by the Lord for His pastimes in the mortal world, and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are difficult subject matters, and those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The more they discuss the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord in the asuric spirit, the more they enter into the darkest region of hell. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 16:20. Anyone who is against the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less a beastly creature, as confirmed in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Deha nyasam cha tus yaivam dhiranam darya vardhanam anyesham duskarataram pushunam viklavatmanam. The Lord's glorious acts and His acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than His devotees to understand. And for the beasts, they are simply a mental disturbance. So in the verse, Prabhupada has translated stating that it is difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand these forms of the Lord. Also, he has repeated the same point in his purport, stating that the transcendental bodily expansions manifest by the Lord for His pastimes in the mortal world, and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are difficult subject matters. And those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, it sometimes arises in the mind, why is it so difficult? Because this is the knowledge of the Supreme Lord, which is knowledge which is beneficial for everyone. Everyone is a servant of God, of Krishna. So why does the subject matter of God, particularly His forms, His appearance and disappearance, why is that a difficult thing to understand? Why is it like that? Why do we have to tax? Prabhupada used to use this phrase, tax our brains. Why do we have to tax our brains to understand this? Why is there this kind of exclusive qualification? You must be devotee, and you must discuss this amongst devotees, and even then it's a difficult subject matter. So the answer is that we tax our brains in this material world for so many nonsensical things, to understand so many mundane subject matters. This is why there is such an elaborate educational system. People go through the education taxing their brains, reading so many books, taking so many courses, passing so many tests. And then those who can pass through, they they join an exclusive. You're one of them. You got MA degree, I heard?
Me? Yeah, Master of Science.
Yes, Master of Science. So you got such a degree. So then that's like an exclusive club, you see. And those who have MA or PhD, they're considered very learned and authoritative. And when they speak, it's supposed to be real knowledge. So this is already the point. My point is that this is going on in the material world already, but for material things. And people accept it because they think that yes, the really good things of life, they don't come so easy. You have to work harder. And that's all, acceptable. That's considered right and proper. But then when we come to spiritual subject matter, then sometimes this objection I'm speaking of is raised. Well, why is it so hard? So you see, this is actually illustrating just the point that Prabhupada is making in the purport. That people in this world are materialistic. he writes here this nice phrase that the miscreants who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of God at any stage due to asurika bhava, or a spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. You see, this is asurika bhava, is a spirit that predominates in this material world. And people are doing their business, building up this civilization, making so many projects and enterprises, vast leaps of technology, shooting rockets into space, all these things they do, but it's all done with a motive of rebellion against Krishna. By these grandiose efforts, they are trying to beat Krishna. They're actually trying to prove that they are God. You see, that they are doing things that God, even if there is a God, then God can't do these things. You see. So this is the mood that's there in modern civilization. And so, yes, you see in this society, I think the Scandinavian countries are a good illustration, because they spend a great deal of time with refining the material arrangements, so that everyone has a nice Nokia hand phone, and everyone has a computer, and everyone's plugged into the internet, and they try to refine all this. But then when it comes to the subject matter of religion or God, then that should be as simplified as possible. Yes, you can have it, but it's a matter of belief. That's what they say. This is not knowledge anymore. This is not serious. This is, you can believe that there's a God. You can go to your church. That's all right. You're still not busy enough on Sunday. If we still haven't given you enough engagements to keep you working 7 days a week, and you find some time, then you can go to the church and hear some, simple words about God, which are practically meaningless. So this is the whole accent of modern civilization. You see from the start, they're not taking the subject matter of God seriously at all. And then Prabhupada goes on to say something. This is like advancing this same point one more step, and it's very interesting. Those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. So we look at these religions that are prominent in this materialistic society. The Christianity, the Judaism, the Islam in the Western world. These are the most prominent religions. And then even in India, which is becoming westernized, then Hinduism is there, but generally it is the Mayavadi form of Hinduism. And then of course you go further east from India and you come to the Buddhist countries. So all of these religions, they have certainly their very strong differences in doctrine, but when it comes down to this point of form, the form of the Lord, practically there's no information, or even the information is that God has no form. You see. So this is interesting that Prabhupada says those who are not devotees are advised not to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses. That's why those religions are like they are. These are religions for non-devotees. there's some belief in God. You see, some moral standard is being preached in these religions, which is good, for these people. But knowledge of the form of the Lord, His appearance and disappearance, that's practically absent or very rudimentary, very less information is given about that. So, for example, in none of you don't see in these religions any deity worship, as we know it here in ISKCON, where the form of the Lord, because that is an example of what Prabhupada is talking about. Prabhupada is talking about the avatar forms of Krishna, and the deity is called Archa Avatar. So this is another avatar form. And deity is not so easy to understand, because when a person looks at the deity with these conditioned senses, the strong tendency is to conclude this is a statue. Or I have Shalagram Shilas, and these are stones, black stones. You see, so materialistic people, that means sensual people, whose most important source of information are the gross material senses, because it's through these senses that they get sense gratification, and that's what life's all about to them. So therefore, what the senses say, that has the greatest prominence. So, this leads right into Mayavadi philosophy, you see. Because the Mayavad, which says God or Brahman, the spiritual nature, is formless, is just the next step. Just that, so we have tried to enjoy in this material world and become frustrated. So let us now think about something beyond liberation. And then, as you all know very well, then there's just this simple process of negation. If it is spiritual, it can't be like this. And this has form, so that can have no form. And this is all, like childish philosophy. This is why the Mayavadis are called less intelligent. That means what? That means they're still on the sensory platform, sensual platform. Just negating it, that's all. So, they never come, they don't come to grips with spiritual form. And Prabhupada says it's better for them not to, as long as they're on this very gross stage, because then they will make offenses. So therefore you see in these religions I just mentioned, there either is no deity worship at all, or there's a very wrong understanding of, like in the Mayavadis, they sometimes are worshipping deities, but they have this very wrong understanding, which Prabhupada is warning about. But generally, you see, this Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they're all saying deities, they're idols. God is not there, so don't do any worship. It's a waste of time, or even worse. They say it's worse than just a waste of time. So again, sometimes we may ask ourselves, why is it that these religions are saying such things, when we know that Krishna comes in form and we should worship Him? Why, if these religions are also revealed and the Lord's purpose is there in these religions too, why do they say don't worship deities? And this is because this is the instruction for materialistic people, and we have been hearing this right here in this purport. Prabhupada saying the same point. Yes, so the Lord's appearance in this world is difficult for materialistic people because they judge everything on the basis of their there's a state Atmavan Manyate Jagat. They see everything else according to their own conditioned viewpoint. They think that's what it is. As they see, they think so it is. So everything I see is material. So if we can see the form of the Lord, deity form, or his lila form, when he appears, that also must be material. And the mention is here of for the beasts, these topics of the appearance and activities of the Lord are simply mental disturbance. So we see Hiranyaksha. Now Hiranyaksha is a good example of a beast. He was a powerful asura, simply interested in sense gratification. So what was his remark when he saw Lord Varahadev? You remember? Prabhupada has rendered it so nicely.
Who was an amphibious?
Yes. Oh, an amphibious beast. So because he's a beast, you see, he's a beast. Therefore, this is his judgment of this appearance of the Lord. The Lord is just a beast, like me. You see, this is the level of his understanding. And therefore I can kill him. You see. He may be strong, but I'm also strong. So I have defeated everyone else so far, so why can't I defeat him? This is there's just no conception of transcendence. Simply materialistic. Beastly. Yes, and then the subject matter is simply mental disturbance. Hiranyaksha was, of course, very disturbed, very angry that the Lord had appeared in this way and was interfering with his program of throwing the earth out of its orbit, very important activity, to toss the earth out of its orbit. And Prabhupada said this was part of their program of looting the earth of all of its riches. So, and this is why Krishna is appearing. Vinashaya Chadushkritam. This is one of the aspects to destroy such demons, so they're naturally not able to understand. And Pirtanaya Sadhuna. It's the sadhus, the saintly persons, the devotees. They are delivered by the appearance of the Lord. And this is the famous verse, Janma karma chime divyam evam yo veti tattvata, is explaining why. Evam yo veti tattvata. Those who know about my janma, appearance and activities in truth, then the consequence of that knowledge is that they themselves do not have to take birth in this world again. There's a logic here that when Krishna comes, he is not taking birth in this world as an ordinary conditioned soul takes birth. His appearance is transcendental. And so if someone actually understands this, if someone grasps this point, that this appearance and activity, this form of the Lord, is transcendental, is not subject to karma, not subject to birth and death, then that person also achieves transcendence, transcendental existence by the grace of the Lord. That means also transcendental form, as an associate of the Lord in the spiritual world. And these associates also come with Krishna when he comes. So their appearance in this world is the same as Krishna's. It is divyam, divine, transcendental. So this knowledge, proper understanding of the Lord's form, is difficult so long as our intelligence is not purified. Intelligence, mind, senses. You see, this is the predicament of these Asurika Bhava people, is that their instruments of knowledge are impure. And so, actually knowledge is not available to them at all. If the senses, mind, intelligence, consciousness is impure, then the so-called knowledge, Maya Aprihita Jnana. There is a capacity, as I said, we see in this society, there are people with capacity for great learning, but that capacity is stolen by illusion. And this Maya simply deludes them with so much illusory so-called knowledge. So they're victimized by this. And this all starts prapadyante namam diskritimana mudha prapadyante narana. Namam diskrit, Prabhupada so often quoted this. These people never surrender to him. There's mudha. This verse is describing a gradation of society, materialistic society. So there are the mudhas, who are human beasts, as this verse is indicating. Pashunam. So mudha, pashunam, they're quite similar in meaning. So that's the vast majority. They're just beasts of burden without much thinking going on at all. Then a little above them is naradamas, which means lowest of mankind. They're puffed up thinking that they're very elevated by some culture. You know, when they eat some meat, holding the bone to the mouth, then these fingers are up in the air. This is very high class. This is what they think. So this is Naradama. They have all these niceties of their gross, ignorant culture, sinful culture. Then Maya Aprihita Jnana. So the intellectuals, who are, as I said, they have a capacity for knowledge, but it is stolen by illusion. So all they know is nonsense. But they're very, very much absorbed in that nonsense. And it has, Maya is providing them so many intricate details of illusory information. And they really try to stay on top of all these details, you know. Fill their heads up full of all these facts and figures, which are in any case always changing. I got the other day a science magazine, and the theme of this whole magazine, there are a series of articles about how, well, Albert Einstein, his theory of relativity and all of that, yeah, that's been around for some time now, and now we should move beyond. You see, it's quite amusing to read these, because they're not sure where it is they'll move to, because that's quite unclear. There's different speculations, different attempts are made to disprove Einstein or to show that there can be something else, but it's not clearly established. But they just, you know, they're saying it's that time. We should move on. And you know, just like before Einstein, there was Sir Isaac Newton with his physics, but they moved on to relativity. Now they want to move on to something else. So, yeah, all of this intricate, detailed knowledge for which so many books have been written and so many examinations have been given in university, and you're supposed to know this, but it's all temporary also, you see. So whatever you learn in time, it becomes obsolete, it becomes more or less useless. This is the nature of material knowledge. So anyway, they're really trying to, this is their great endeavor, Maya Pratigyana, really trying to get a grasp of this ever-changing material knowledge. And they're very puffed up, the more that they think they know. And then finally, as mentioned in the purport, the Namam Diskritina verse ends, Asurikam Bhavam Ashrita. So, beyond the Maya Pratigyana, those intellectuals whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, they are the out-and-out asuras. They are powerful. They have power to propagate sinful activities in society. So they're dictating to the others, even to the intellectuals, what to do. So they need a bomb, a new kind of bomb to blow up some vast region. So they call up the scientists, make us a bomb. Yes, sir. So these are the four classes. What is the point? They do not surrender to Krishna. They do not surrender to Krishna. And because they do not surrender to Krishna, they're condemned to ignorance and to foolishness. So, this is why for them, as long as they're in that condition of not surrender to Krishna, it is actually advised then don't touch this subject matter of Krishna consciousness, particularly the appearance of the Lord, His form. Don't touch this with your contaminated mental speculation, because you'll just make great offenses. So, are there any questions? Yes?
Maharaj, while preaching colleges and like that, it's this topic of, or the point of that, Srila Prabhupada is saying this is spiritual science, more like, indicating it's not like a religion like that. So, I mean, of course we have some points to mention, but I was actually thinking that, at least my understanding of what we are supposed to say, does it come back to the, like you mentioned in Substance and Shadow, the different levels of consciousness, so that like at Hoksasha it will be like, in one point, it will be like revealed. Could you kindly explain what we actually mean? It's meant to, when we speak about this is spiritual science.
Science, okay, yeah. Yeah, this questions is sometimes asked. Yeah, when I was in Ukraine, someone asked the same question. So, alright, so those levels of knowledge, that's very scientific. In the sense, we have, you see this word scientific, it has different senses, different applications. So one sense is just that, some very detailed knowledge, very detailed explanation, exacting. So these levels of knowledge that you ascend, this is very, very detailed. You go from pratyaksha to paroksha to aproksha to adhoksaja and then to aprakrita. And at every level there's an explanation of what's going on there. So that's scientific, in one sense of the word scientific. Another sense of the word scientific is that, and I'm not necessarily going to cover all the senses, but this is another important sense, that science is understood to mean a process, a method, that if you follow it, then you're going to get a predictable result. You see? It's not haphazard. So their scientific experiments are conceived of in this way, that if you do this experiment in this way, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you have these ingredients, these chemicals, and this exact amount of chemicals, and you run this process on them, runs, for example, charge the chemicals up with electricity, certain number of volts, power of electricity for a certain amount of time. All these things these values will be defined. And then they say, at the end, this is what's going to happen, you see. And that proves something. That proves some law of this or that. This is how they settle up their proofs, by this exacting procedure. So Krishna consciousness is also like that. So in that sense it is scientific. We say that if you chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, following 4 regulatory principles and the association of devotees, and following the instructions of bona fide spiritual master, and you meet, we have also very elaborate, detailed, exacting criteria that one should observe when performing bhakti yoga. And we say, if you do this, then you will get the result of Krishna consciousness. That's not a maybe. It's assured. It's even more assured than what the scientists do. There's this nice exchange between Swarup Damodar, at the time he was Prabhu, now he's Maharaj, but he was Prabhupada's favorite scientist disciple. And Srila Prabhupada, so they were talking. Actually, Prabhupada was giving a class after morning walk with Swarup Damodar Prabhu. And in the class, Prabhupada he asked him, because he had made some point in the walk, and Prabhupada wanted to repeat it in the class, so he wanted to Swarup Damodar to say it again, so it would be correct. And the point was that what the scientist's method of doing things is not in every case the same. And it was on this point that Prabhupada was asking, what is this? And then Swarup Damodar Prabhu said, because of the factor of error. He said, in scientific experiments, there's always error creeping in, and therefore they have to correct that error. So, and Prabhupada laughed, hearing this. Everyone laughed, actually. And then Prabhupada said, so it is all nonsense. Like even Einstein, who was the greatest scientist when he was formulating his theory of the universe. So it's a mathematical theory, and he wants to get some result, some value. And to get that value, he, which was already conceived of him, by him in his mind, he had to put in a number which became known as the cosmological constant. Now the thing is that this number was, what do we say? What is the word? It was just a provisional number. It's just some number that Einstein made up to make his equation work. And it had no relationship to anything. He just said this number must be, this is called the he gave it a fancy name, cosmological constant. And this number must be here, factored into the equation. And all the other points of the equation were some values, some actual values of matter or energy or something. But then he just threw in this constant to make the equation work. So later, sometime later, this was rejected. But you see, this is what scientists do. They have to make some arrangement to deal with the error. They want to get a result. But if they take the actual values and compute them together, then it often happens that the result they want doesn't come. And what do they say? Then they say, error. Error must have crept in. Now we have to find that error. And then they do some mumbo jumbo to adjust everything so that they get the number they want. So this is what Suhotra Prabhu was explaining to Prabhupada, and he was laughing. He said, therefore it is all nonsense. Finish up your business, Prabhupada said, and just simply chant Hare Krishna. Come here and chant Hare Krishna. Finish up all that nonsense business and come here and chant Hare Krishna. And that's a fact. We don't have to, there's no error that creeps into the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Of course, we can not be chanting properly, that's another thing. But the process itself, if it's followed, then it will deliver the result of the Shastra, the power that the Shastra tells us it will deliver. And that's because the object of Bhakti Yoga is Krishna himself, and Krishna is a person, and Krishna is making himself available by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Krishna is not passive in that sense, not just a goal, but he's a person who has interest in those who are trying to become devotees. He will help them. You see? So, Pratijane, he tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, I promise you, it's a guarantee, I promise you that if you do these things, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyajim, these items of devotional service, Pratijani, I promise you, Priyosimi, because you are very dear to me, that you will attain me, you will achieve me. Anything else? There's probably other definitions of science. Somewhere I read an interesting explanation of three ways in which the word science can be used. And I'm pretty sure what I told you was two of them. And the other one I don't remember right now. And there may be more, who knows. But basically science, the word science, I don't know what word you have in Finnish language for science, but at least in English it comes from Latin, scios, which means to know. So science is supposed to be a rigorous, precise method of knowledge. That's basically what it's supposed to be. Anything else? No? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Suhotra Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.